Welcome to the Underdog Sniper Podcast. I'm your host, MGCovers. This is episode 67. Happy Tuesday. I'm a day late again this week, as always. Just seems like every Monday I have a bunch going on, but excited to be here. We have a lot to talk about. We'll give you a general preview, talk about a personal update, some changes I made in my life that I think are going to benefit my business. And I'm super excited about it. It was very hard to do, very difficult decision. We're going to dive into the MLB totals model, show you a very unique situation that I think you can actually blindly play this particular angle, which I'm not a big concept guy or just, playing one, or playing a basic concept type situational angle, but I think it could potentially work. I'll show you that. And then last, we're going to wrap it up. I'm going to talk about the totals, the new stat model program that I'm launching and my sort of philosophical thoughts behind it and how I'm pricing that. And I think you guys will like what I have to say on that. So, all right, we'll dive into it. Before we talk about results, I did something personal. I deactivated all my personal social media accounts. I just felt like it was a waste of time. There's a really good book, if you want to read. It's called Stolen Focus, I think is the name of it. Extremely fascinating book, but it talks about the impact that social media and the iPhone in particular has had on our society. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for everyone, but for me in my life and where I'm at and the things I want to accomplish moving forward, it's something that I wanted to do. I'm really focused on getting better at golf. I have a lifelong goal / dream of being a scratch golfer. Currently a 3.3 handicap. I got it down to a 2 a couple years ago, was really grinded, made some changes with my golf swing. So I want to focus on that. And then of course, really immerse myself in building the business even bigger, and which is what we'll talk about later with the stat model program that I think is going to appeal to a lot of people. So no distractions I still have my regular social media for the business, still have Twitter account, have all those things, but I think this will definitely help my focus. If you're curious about that, it's a really good book, Stolen Focus. It will really make you rethink the impact social media has had on society and how less productive we can become and how much time we waste on there as well. All right, so let's dive into the totals model. Let me pull this up. I was kind of concerned about it coming out of the All-Star break. Anytime you have a break like that and you're sort of coming back into it, you don't know if it's going to be sharp or not, but it's actually been productive. Post All-Star break, it's gone 3-2, and 2 of the losses were bad beats. And then the push that we had was a bad beat as well. So that's really good. It went 2-0 last night. We played both of those. It was solid. But what I want to show you, well, let me go and give you the update here. It's so year to date, it is now 30-21, which I'm thinking that got it back over 60%. So that would be 30 divided by 51, 59%, up 6.99 units. And what's interesting I want you to see here is if you're looking at this right here, this in color, this is our F5 line for both teams. So the way we play this, if you're new, listening to the podcast or watching this on video, we want to play. A play for the under is when both teams have an F5 line of 3.9 or less, is basically how we're doing it. And we're not playing the F5 line, although you could, but we're actually playing the total game. Now, what is fascinating, if you look over here to Houston, this was on 7/20. This was 2 days ago. The average totals line that we've played with this model is 7.9. And I mentioned this last week, or in the last video, the average number of runs scored is 8.6. So that's way below the mean. You wouldn't think that would be successful, but it actually is. Now, what's fascinating about this, look at this Houston game right here. This line opened at 6.5. It ended up moving down to 6 before it closed. And I actually posted this on Power Rankings for my clients to see. I said, hey guys, I don't think this will be a good play simply because at a 6, it is extremely low. And some of you might remember this if you're clients from 2 years ago. This is how we played overs. So when we had at least one good hitting team in the top 10, or let me take that back. If the totals line was 6 and one of the 2 teams was in the top 10 in hitting, we would play the over. And so what I did was I went back and looked at this tracker. This game went way over, by the way. And so this is very similar to what I would call a public line move. A public line move is when the public knows and understands why that line is moving. Then it's an injury. So for example, in NBA, if LeBron's out, the line is -7. say it was -7 for the Lakers. LeBron is absent, that line might move from -7.5. It might move all the way down to -4.5. That is called a public line move. In a lot of cases, with a public line move, it's advantageous to play opposite of the move, meaning you would play the -4.5. So when you see a line at 6, what in baseball, as far as totals, everybody understands why this line is moving down. Both of these pitchers are really good, but it's to the point to where we've overvalued the pitching. Again, I've talked about this before. Granted, pitching is very important, which is another reason why I changed this model, but there can be a point in sports betting, sports handicapping, when one side is overvalued. 3 parts to Major League Baseball: starting pitching, hitting, and relief pitching. So what happens when one side is extremely overvalued? Where's the value? The value is on the opposite side. What's the opposite of the under? The over. So then at this point, I would say it's advantageous to play the over. And what's interesting, if you go back and look, and this is what I did over here on the right, we've had a total of 4 plays. Again, a small sample size, but I'd be willing to bet this would be profitable, exclusively playing overs on lines of 6.5 or less. And I'm going to go back and test it with my model here, and then look at all the plays that didn't qualify with the model, but were 6.5, which would already tell me, I'm sure my F5 line was greater than that, if that makes sense. So I'm thinking that just exclusively playing 6.5 or less on the over would be profitable in baseball. And so what I did was, we had a total of 4 plays, not a lot, but I extracted those 4 plays. We had 3 losses, including that Houston game I just mentioned, and 1 win. So if you exclude those from the model or from the tracker, instead of going 30, 21, and 6.9 units, we would go 29 and 18, over 60%, up 9.2. So moving forward, we're not going to play if a line is 6.5 or less, we will not play that on the under. And we might potentially add something to this model to where we're playing the over. And of course, I could actually look at that F5 line and look at the relationship between my F line and the 6.5 line to see if it would make sense and actually playing that as well. I was thinking if that was something I could do on the podcast, but I might need to research that and don't want to have a lot of dead time. So I feel like this model is going to be very successful in the second half of the season. Again, the only point of concern was the point I just made, is that the market may have adjusted to the point to where I mentioned that last week, unders not going to extra innings were hitting 50. I think it was like 53.8. So if you round it off, it's like 54%. So now the market's adjusting. People overreact to the good pitching. So you might want to be careful with that. And then once that line gets to, 6.5 or less, probably advantageous to simply play it on the over, simply because it will eventually regress to 8.6. Obviously, we're playing very low totals, but we have a model that has proven to be successful playing the unders. So anxious to see what happens. Stay tuned. I might make another video on that, or if you follow me on social media, I'm MGCovers, covers spelled with the Z. If you're watching this for the first time, there's a link in the description. So you get a ton of value. Follow me on Instagram. I put out a lot of value. And also we have something called Free Fridays, where I give out all my lines for free on Friday. So it's super fascinating, right? Okay, this was from yesterday. And to avoid flipping back between screens, what I want to show you, look at the F5 lines. You'll see, all right, this over here, this is the just normal line for the game, San Diego, Miami, minus plus 124, plus 104, and we have a separate F5 line. So what I looked, and I'm going to out loud, I'll tell you, because you can't see it on the screen, I'll tell you the actual books line. But what I was looking at doing is, when you have both F5 lines that are +4 or higher for both teams, it could potentially be a play on the over, depending on what that line is. For example, San Diego to Miami, we would pass. We had one team that was a 3.5, which is very low. And then another team, Miami, was high, but it would not be a play on the over, or potential play on the over, simply because both teams don't meet the criteria of +4. And in fact, that San Diego Miami game was an 8 line and it went under at 3. Now we move on to Baltimore Cleveland. Look at this one, 4.1 and a 5. So that would be a combined 9.1 F5 line. The total for that game was 8 to 8.5, depending on the book. Scored 15 runs total. All right, Cincinnati and Washington, we would pass on that one because we have one team here. Same deal, Boston, Philadelphia. We have one team at a 2.6, another one at a 5. The line for that was 7.5 to 8, depending on the book. So again, another good example is that when we have, and we know this model is really good, is that when a team has an F5 line or 3.9 or lower, tendency to lean towards the under. Now, Yankees and Toronto, this was 8.5 totals line. My line was 9.6. So some value on the over, and that would have been a loss. Angels and the Mets. Look at this one, 4.1 and 5.4. So that was a total of 9.5. Books had it at 8.5. They scored 12 runs. So that would have been an over. Now check out this this San Francisco, Atlanta. You had a 4.8 F5 line for San Fran, a 7.0 F5 line for Atlanta, and the line was only 9.5. Our F5 line was 11.8, so that would have been a play for the over, and that would have won. So my point is, with some tweaking, I could potentially make this incorporate overs into this model as well, and I may sort of investigate that a little bit deeper now. Definitely not going to mess with sides the rest of the year, but there's some definite potential in this model. And that would make sense because if the under is cashing, with the premise of teams 3.9 F5 line or less, then obviously the over should cash and should be profitable playing F5 lines that are +4 or greater, or maybe even a little higher than that. You might could set a criteria when it's like for example, this Baltimore Cleveland, this equals 9.1. You might could say, hey, what I could test, I'm just giving you an idea how you would test something. I might just go back and look at where the F5 lines total 9 or greater, playing the over if it's 9.5 or less, for example. Because once you get up to like 11, it might not be advantageous. An example of that was St. Louis and Colorado. Yeah, like look here. St. Louis was 5.0 F5 line, Colorado 4.1. So that was a 9.1. But the totals line for that was 11.5. So not much advantage in playing the over there. All right. But again, super, super fascinating. There's this Milwaukee-Seattle game. Look at that F5 line of 3.6 total for both teams combined. And the total for that was a 7. We played it. It landed on the 6 and ended up with a 2-0 night there. So really, really, really excited about what's going to happen with this totals model. And we still have we got like 2 weeks left in July. And then of course, all of August. I probably will shut this down in September, but we'll see. Who knows? It might be profitable, very dangerous to wager late in the season. But again, there are no rules in sports betting. Made a video about that. The last video, just something you have to test, but we'll definitely be cautious moving into September. But I feel like we'll be profitable from here on out with this totals model. So, all right, we're going to wrap the podcast up and we're going to talk about the new stat model program that I'm going to launch that I'm super, super excited about. Now, it's going to take me a while to explain this, and I'm going to have to back up a little bit, but I think providing some context to how I'm going to price this program and the reasoning behind it will be beneficial to the sports betting community. And we'll start by talking about Netflix. Now, I'm going to show how old I am. When Netflix came out, I think Netflix came out I think it was founded in like 97, 98, somewhere around there. And I think they launched their subscription model in like 1999. It was either 1999 or 2000. I felt like I was one of the first people to subscribe to Netflix. Again, this is before streaming. We still, at that point, in 2000, we had DVDs. I was a big movie guy. I love to watch movies. I'm not anymore. I fall asleep if I go to the movies, and I get bored watching movies now. I love documentaries, 20 minutes to an hour max. And maybe that's the attention span of the America now, but very difficult for me to watch movies now. But back then I loved it. Their initial subscription package for DVDs, this is what they did. It was $7.99. And what you got with that, you got one DVD shipped to your house. You could watch unlimited amount of movies, but you could only obtain one at a time. So meaning they would ship you a DVD. You would go online. Hey, I want to watch this movie. They would ship it to you. You would watch it, send it back. So literally when I got it in, I would watch it that night, boom, ship it out the next morning. I already have my next request in, get that. And I was watching, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 movies a month. And it just felt like an absolute steal. And I thought to myself, I don't know how this company is going to make money. How are they going to be profitable doing this? But again, their business model was to offer a ton of value, but the price you paid was very, very low. And that, in my opinion, is what has made Netflix a successful business here in the last 25 years. Let me give you another example of that. Planet Fitness. Planet Fitness model is the same amount of thing. You can, I don't even know what it costs. I think I've been in a Planet Fitness a few times with my ex back in the day, but I don't know what the membership is. I think it's like, is it $10, $15? Is it $20? Extremely low compared to your average traditional gym, but they offer a ton of value. I think depending on the package, you can get tanning with that, have a lot of equipment. They tend to cater towards the crowd that's sort of apprehensive about going to a macho type gym. And they build it's a very successful model, and it appeals to a lot of people. But the point I want to make is it's a very low cost entry point. Now, I want to talk about where we are in the world. One of the reasons why I left America, this exists in other parts of the world as well. It feels like the world we live in is a money grab, meaning like we just overcharge the consumer for everything. We're not really providing a ton of value to the consumer. It's just all about, let's see how much money we can squeeze out of this person. And if you watch a lot of these entrepreneur type coaching videos online, not really related to sports betting, but it's all about, hey, if you want to make money, sell a high ticket item, sell a coaching package for $20,000, sell it for $50,000. First off, I don't believe a lot of those people actually do that. And of course, I don't think they offer enough value to justify paying that much money. But the point is, it just feels like we're overcharging people for everything. For example, when I was at the resort 2 weeks ago in Puerto Rico, a medium coffee, they had this little coffee station, $6.42 for a coffee. $6.42 for a coffee. The golf course I played 2 golf courses. One of them, it was a nice course in the fact that it was a nice design, but I felt like they overcharged you. I had to pay $25 to the hotel, which was kind of bizarre. And and then they gave me a shuttle ride to the golf course. It was close. I could have walked, but it'd been a long distance. So I had to pay them $25 just to get a quote tee time. Then went up to the golf course. It was like $180. And it was not a $200 golf course. Those of you that are actually golfers, it felt like maybe like a Golf Now deal of say 50 or 60 bucks, somewhere there. That's what it felt like it should be priced. So my point is, it seems like businesses today are on two ends of the spectrum. These businesses that are overcharging the consumer and not offering value, in my opinion, considering what's happening to technology, will not sustain itself in the years to come. There are going to be a ton of businesses, a ton of restaurants, a ton of retail stores, a ton of online stores that will not make it in today's economy. I think the reason MGCovers, my business, has been so successful, it's a very low entry point. $50 a month gives you access to all the coaching videos. You get access to all my lines for $50 a month. Cancel anytime, very inexpensive. If you want all that in addition on my plays, $100 a month. If you join for a year, bigger discount. Instead of paying $100 a month, you pay $4.99 one time, get access to everything on the website. And even right now, offering the Major League Baseball totals model to anybody as a client, you get the entire model, what stats I use, everything. So my point is, I think businesses that offer a ton of value, but at a low price point, it's the way to go. Now, here's the problem, and I'm going to tie this into sports betting. Originally, the way I would do the coaching program, some of you paid $1,500 for the original coaching program. Some of you paid $2,000. I had one long-term client that was a lot more than that. But the point is, in sports betting, only 3 to 5% of the people that wager on sports are profitable long term. So that means the rest of those people have, a job, another business, etc., and generally don't have $2 to $3,000 to invest into sports betting, in my opinion, to sustain it. Maybe one time, but not anything that would be sustainable. So the majority of people that want to succeed in this business, in my opinion, are looking for a ton of value, but at a very, very, very low price point. The people that probably could afford $2,000, $3,000 coaching via the way that I teach are already successful. Meaning, if the people in sports betting only represent 3 to 5% of the profitable bettors, that means I would be catering to a crowd of people that, was only 3 to 5%. So I would rather cater to the 97% But in order to do that, I have to offer a product that's very inexpensive. So the price for the new coaching program is going to be either it's going to be $29.95 or $24.95. So it's going to be very inexpensive. Nobody's going to have to ask permission from their wife to join, but the amount of value that you're going to get is going to be, it's going to be insane. And so in my opinion, I think we'll do a lot of volume, very similar to the business model I have with just the business that I've structured now with power rankings and my coaching videos on the normal site. But this new site, I'm not sure if I'm going to run it through Substack or create another website, leaning towards Substack, $25 a month, and you're going to get a ton of value in that. So super excited about that. If you want more information on that, there's a link in the description of this video. Sign up for Stat Model Coaching. You'll be on the list. You'll be first to be notified when I actually launch this. And my plan is to have it launch before college football season, so which is, believe it or not, only about 5 weeks away. So really excited about that. And if you got an opinion on that, I'd love to hear it. Send me a DM or comment on this video below. That's going to be a wrap for this week's podcast. Stay tuned. Have a great week. Talk to you guys soon.